Hello, bonjour, здравствуйте, assalamu alaikum, guten tag, ni hao, konnichiwa, hola. Hello, big welcome to the Knitters Party podcast. My name is Megan, I'm your host. I'm coming to you today from Cairo, Egypt, where I live with my husband until September 2018, and then we go back to the United States, which is my home base there in San Diego, California. Really missing it right now, but I've got a lot of things sort of going on here in Cairo to keep me busy, keep me occupied, and of course a lot of knitting. Guess what I found at my local market today, guys? Diet Dr. Pepper. I haven't had soda, like American style soda, in a really long time, so I was absolutely thrilled to see this at the market. They had clearly bought a 12-pack and just are selling them individually, because I bought 2 cans. They had 6 available. They were all covered in super sticky pop, so that's why I think they are selling them individually instead of in a 12-pack. Something definitely burst. But I'm really happy because today during my party, my knitters party, I actually have a drink that I get to drink that's making me happy and making me feel like I'm, you know, one step closer to sort of heading back home to our permanent destination there in San Diego. So cheers. Man, that is so good. Can I just say, it is a lot harder than I remember to put on lipstick. I put on lipstick today because I was like, oh, why not? It's a weekend. I'm like chilling in Cairo. I'm not going anywhere today. I'm filming a podcast. Let me put on some lipstick. Boy, that was a 20-minute fiasco. I put it on 3 different times. I don't know how women do this every single day. So if you're one of those women who wears lipstick all the time, share your secrets with me because I have a lot to learn, apparently. Anyway, glad to see you guys. If you are a returning viewer, hello, welcome back. If this is your first time stumbling onto my channel, welcome. This is a knitting podcast. I do some crochet, but it is probably 90% knitting on an average day. I am in Cairo, Egypt. I have been here for 3 months now, but it actually feels like a little bit less time, which is really nice. I am feeling a bit homesick. I'm not going to say culture shocked, more homesick because I guess having my parents here, my parents just visited about a month ago now, which is absolutely insane to think about it. They visited me a month ago. It was really great to see them and spend time with them, but it also made me realize sort of that I'm not home, that I'm not in my country with, you know, my friends and my family and everything like that. So doing this podcast really helps sort of connect me back to the world that I came from, that I no longer feel like I'm really a part of back there in the United States. So anyway, it's just really good to be with you guys again. Thanks for joining me on my channel. Let's get into this, shall we? First of all, I'm not going to necessarily show you what I'm wearing because I'm wearing pajama bottoms. Oh, this is like everyone's worst Skype trick. I'm wearing like pajama bottoms and like a nice fancy top, got my hair done, my makeup done, but I'm definitely in my Jimmy Jams. But I am wearing some hand knit socks today. I'll just take one off because I had a little something done. Oh my god, this is all sorts of stretched out. These are the Hermione Everyday socks that I knit for myself. God, a year ago now, a little less than that maybe. This is knit out of Knit Picks Hawthorne. I don't remember the colorway, but this blue yarn here is a sock yarn. The black yarn that I used is not a sock yarn. This is Knit Picks Capretta. Capretta. No, it's a merino cashmere nylon blend. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have the softest heels, toes, and cuffs in the world. Little did I know that they are not super wash, and so I've thrown these in the wash 3, 4, 10 times now, and the toe and the heel have definitely felted, as well as these cuffs, which make it very hard to wear. It gets smaller and smaller every time I wash them, and so I'm thinking I might have to do some sock surgery and sort of fix the toes, maybe add a new toe with a better yarn that is superwash. But today especially, I put these on and the cuff was just too small for my foot this time, and so I actually ended up sort of cutting into it. I don't think it's going to go all the way down into my blue yarn because, again, this has felted time and time again. So I just sort of cut it open a little bit to give myself a little extra room, and now it slides on my foot much easier. So I'm happy to see that. Sorry they're dirty. Literally just came right off my foot, but I'm happy to be wearing something hand knit right now because I feel like I don't wear my actual knits. I also have been like looking around my house here in Cairo. I've been knitting non-stop since I got here. 3 months worth of knitting. I've knit shawls, I've knit sweaters, I've knit socks and hats and mittens and everything, but I sent most of it back to the United States with my parents. I told them to bring like basically an empty suitcase because we've got all of our winter clothes that we wanted to send back as well as our knitting. So I look around and I'm like, where are all of my knits? Like, I don't have anything hand knit that I can wear. And I'm like sitting here, and if I just want to feel cozy or if I want to feel better, you know, like I've been sick lately a little bit, so wearing my hand knits makes me feel good, and you know how it is. But I feel like I don't have any of my knits around me for some reason, except for socks. So I've just been wearing my hand knit socks like crazy. So that's all. That's what I'm wearing. Let's get into our finished objects, shall we? I've got 2 pairs of finished objects this week, which is like 4 finished objects, so I'm stoked about this. First thing I'm going to show you is my Simple Skip Socks by Adrienne Koo. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. I did not follow the pattern, I did not follow the stitch count, I did not follow anything. I just liked the look of this skip stitch. It's sort of these rows that I've got here. It's a really cool, very simple stitch that is memorized in 1 second, and it makes like a nice texture to these socks, and so I really like them. I added a bunch more of the skip rows than was originally in the pattern. I think the pattern had like 2 or 3 only, and so I did 6 across the top of the foot, and then all around the whole leg of the foot. And I actually love these socks. I love them, but I don't love them, because especially this sock here, I've got this big area on this side of the sock. All the color has sort of pooled right here, which is really nice. But on the other side of the sock, I have this large section where it's mostly white, and when I wore these to take pictures for Ravelry, I had this pair on my right foot, which was like this, and I had this pair on my left foot, which was like this, and they didn't look like twin sisters, you know what I mean? And I was sort of peeved about that, so I ended up just switching them around and wore them the other way so that they looked a little bit nicer, but whatever. This is how color pools. This is why I don't use a lot of variegated or speckled yarns, is because I don't love color pooling. I didn't realize that it would sort of make stripes a little bit. Like you can see on the bottom of the foot, actually you can see it on the top foot even better, that it does sort of stripe a little bit, which I thought was really great until you get to the heel and you increase your stitches for the cuff and your stitch count is off, the stripes aren't the same, you're adding a different pattern. It sort of changes the whole look of the sock. I'm not bummed out about it. I just feel like this is why I'm not really a sock knitter. I say that, but I've knit 3 pairs of socks since I've been in Egypt. So I am a sock knitter apparently, but I just have to find my perfect sock yarn. So you'll see in my collection here, I literally don't have any other speckled or variegated yarns. This is the leftover from the ball. I actually tried to knit tall socks with no contrast heel toes and cuffs because I wanted to use up all of this yarn. But I feel like I've got a good 30 grams left of this. This is still a big chunk of yarn. There were only 380 meters in this in the first place. This is a Canadian yarn, so I'm not sure how many yards were in it initially. The sort of yarn tag is in the middle of my skein. I just don't want to take it out because then you can't put it back in. So there were only 380 meters, yards, shit, I don't remember. It was a small skein. It is a really plump fingering weight yarn. I think it's a little more plump than your average, and it is 75% merino and 25% nylon, so a standard sock combination. But I was worried that I wouldn't have enough. I did knit these one at a time, and so I knit this first sock. This is actually the second sock. I knit this first sock, and I was like, oh, that's a very long cuff, you know, a nice ribbing at the top, very stretchy bind off. It was great, but I really thought that I was going to use up all of this yarn. So now, because I love this yarn so much, I feel like, by the way, like Malibu Barbie today. With my hair all curly, I'm wearing this, like, my favorite, like, citrus shirt right now, and I'm picking up all these neon colors. Like, I really feel like Malibu Barbie, and it's making me so happy. But the leftover of this yarn is making me think about a sock yarn blanket. I've always thought they look so stupid, especially, well, okay, sorry, I'm sorry if I have just offended you. I don't love a sock yarn blanket. I don't love mitered squares. I don't love rows of granny square. I don't think I would crochet one at all. The sock yarn blanket that I've been looking at is the Beekeeper's Quilt, and that's with the little hexie puffs that you make out of, you know, your leftover sock yarn. I think it takes 4 times the amount of time because you have to knit 2 sides to this hexagon and like sew them together and stuff it a little bit with some polyfill. It's gonna take forever. But this yarn is what's making me think maybe I want to make a hexagon blanket, Beekeeper's Quilt blanket, because look at this yarn, I can't just chuck it. I don't want it for heels, toes, and cuffs because it's fine, but it's not like the most amazing heel, toe, and cuff yarn in the world. And so I just don't know exactly what to do with it, but I want to do something. So I'm thinking that I'll save it. Those are my socks. Simple Skip Socks by Adrienne Koo. My next work in progress is something you haven't seen before on the podcast, but something I had alluded to on the last episode. I actually made not to myself, I made for another person a pair of mitts. Ooh, I made these mitts again. I've now made 2.5 pairs because this other one that I had just showed you is the same one. This is the Mermaid Scales Fingerless Gloves by Lena Matheson. And it's just got a really cool stitch pattern in there. Now, I had purchased this pattern because I'm a member of several knitting groups on Facebook. One of my favorite ones is Knitting Uncensored. They're the only ones who haven't really kicked me out yet because I like to be very vocal and opinionated, and if you watch the podcast, you might know some of these things. Anyway, I've been kicked out of a few other groups, but Knitting Uncensored has not kicked me out. And this designer had posted on one of our threads and just said, hey, I've come out with a couple of patterns using this mermaid scale stitch. And she has a cowl, a scarf, I think she just came out with a cardigan or something, fingerless gloves. She has a number of different patterns available using this same stitch. And she was like, you know, right now I'm offering buy one, get one free. If you buy any pattern, I'll give you another pattern for free. Just tell me which one you like. And I was like, oh my god, yes, because I saw specifically these fingerless gloves were on the picture she posted. And I absolutely fell in love with them. The pattern is like $3 anyway. It's not expensive in the first place. And so I got the fingerless glove patterns as well as the cowl. I want to call it a cowl. I may or may not knit the cowl, but these fingerless gloves are amazing. The pattern is written flat. I have knit these in the round. It's pretty easy to modify. There's nothing complicated about it. If you find yourself wanting to knit these, check out my pattern notes specifically for these purple ones. The pattern, or the gloves I'd made previously, I don't think I made really good detailed notes about how I knit them flat. Of course, without giving away too much detail about the pattern because it is paid for. But I decided to make these. The yarn is what I had picked up from the last episode at the Khan al-Khalili Bazaar in Cairo. I picked up some yarn that the man told me was silk. So I looked at the ball band on the last episode and I had said, okay, underneath the sticker it says 100% PAC. So the man at the store told me it was silk, but the yarn band says 100% PAC. And it's not a brand that I've ever seen before. I couldn't find it online. I couldn't look it up. But thank you to one of my viewers who is lovely Knitting Envy. She actually posted it was a PDF with abbreviations for fiber types. And PAC was one of them, and lo and behold, it was not silk that I paid 10 Egyptian pounds for, which is like 60 cents. It was in fact polyacrylic. So this whole big thing, which I also picked up, which is clearly the same one, the same yarn, but in a cone, just instead of a 100-gram ball, is polyacrylic, not silk. So thank you, man at the bazaar, for swindling me and telling me that I was buying silk when in fact I'm buying acrylic. The yarn is really beautiful. I ended up using almost all of the 100 grams. I had maybe 5 or 10 yards left over, but I just decided to throw it out. There's nothing I could make with 10 yards of purple acrylic shiny yarn, and so I just chucked it. But these are going to be for my mother-in-law, I believe. The yarn is a little bit scratchy. It's a chainette style twist, or it's not twisted, I'm sorry, it's chainette. And so it feels sort of abrasive on the skin. That plus it being acrylic means it sort of has these like hard edges around it. So if you see here, it's like almost a square yarn, and these edges, when you knit them, they become a bit more rigid. And so it actually feels quite scratchy on the skin. So I knit these with my mother-in-law in mind. They're a bit small for me, but I think they'll fit her, and I have not yet washed them. I think I'm going to wash them in tons of fabric softener, see if they soften up a little bit. But I really love this purple, lustery colorway, so I don't want that to run. I don't think it will because it's acrylic, but who effing knows? I just don't like the fact that I bought this giant cone because this man said it was silk, and I was like, oh, I'm getting such a steal, you know, like silk yarn for 100 pounds, which is like $5 or $6. And it's acrylic, whatever. I'll find something nice to make with this. I am thinking about a shawl for this, but I don't have a shawl in mind just yet. Fingering weight, I've got like 300 grams of acrylic yarn. No idea how many meters. There's no estimation. This has no ball band. It has no information. We're gonna wing it and see what happens. So I'll probably do like a triangle shawl, something you can just stop whenever you've run out of yarn. Nothing exciting. But, yep, and so I finished these. These took no time at all. The nice thing with, I think, fingerless mitts is that they're so easy, they're mindless. I did this when I was watching a show called How to Get Away with Murder. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. Anyway, these are my Mermaid Scales Fingerless Gloves by Lena Matheson. And I am really excited to give them to my mother-in-law. She uses her other pair of fingerless mitts that I gave her all the time. And like I said, she's pretty much the most knit-worthy person I know. Other than myself, it's her. She wears everything. She tells me everything she wears. She says like how she gets compliments at work when she wears something I wear. I know that she actually wears them and loves them and enjoys them. Probably partially because I make them for her, but possibly also because they're just really nice, beautiful things. So we'll see. That's my last finished object. So to open up my works in progress section, I want to sort of let you know that I've been feeling sort of sick lately. I'm not sure even how to explain it, so I haven't seen a doctor here in Egypt, especially because I can barely explain my symptoms in English, let alone in Arabic. And I have gone through this before in the United States and I've seen a doctor and it wasn't really diagnosed. I've sort of been feeling motion sickness throughout the day. And I don't have vertigo. I was tested for this, you know, back in San Diego a couple years ago when the same thing happened. And because of this motion sickness, I've been getting severe headaches. I ended up with basically it turned into a migraine after day 5 of solid headaches. I haven't been knitting that much, is what I'm trying to say. I haven't been feeling well, haven't been knitting much, but yet somehow I have a lot of knitting to show because I have been knitting a lot. I don't know how this all happened, but I don't really care. I've just been sort of feeling so weird lately. It's not sickness necessarily, it's just feeling off. Eating makes it worse, and sitting down for a long time makes it worse. Things that make it better are like walking around or doing some light yoga and sort of getting my mind off of it. And so watching TV has been about the only thing I can do other than lay down and just nap, do absolutely nothing. And normally when I'm sick, if I've got a cold or something, my favorite thing to do is to just sit and knit and pass the time the way that I know best, right? And do a little bit of work and pass the time knitting. But here, when I've been feeling ill, especially feeling motion sickness, when I'm knitting, it's all like very small, finite motions right in front of my eyes, and it's been making me feel worse. But, like I said, I have not been knitting, and yet I have been knitting. I don't know how or why, but we'll just show you what I've got. So these are my works in progress. I'll start off with one that I don't have much progress on, which is my Galaxia lace top. This is by a designer named Vera Sanin, and I had showed this before on my last episode. I don't have much new progress, mainly because I've started a couple of other things, but I have done about another inch or so. Oh, another like actually I made a lot. I haven't picked this up in about a week. I've made more progress than I expected. So last time I was about here. Now I've got maybe 3 or 4 more inches to the body done. Oh, that makes me feel good. Whenever I have a big project that just sits on the needles, the longer it sits, the less motivation I have to work on it. So I'm actually really happy to see my own progress that, that I've got a couple of extra inches on there. So this pattern is absolutely beautiful. I am modifying it so that the back of the shirt has all of the lace. On the pattern page on Ravelry, the front of the top has the lace, but I wanted it to be on the back because I think a sexy back, you know, a lacy back is sexy, a nice open breezy back. It's not going to be form-fitting. I think it's going to be really nice. And so this looks good. The front of the shirt also looks quite nice. I just love this lace pattern. It is not easy. I cannot really do this when I'm watching television, and so it sort of is my last go-to project. I pretty much knit on this when I want to listen to music. About music, I don't know what you guys are into, but I've been listening to Marilyn Manson's new album quite a bit. It's pretty decent. If you're into industrial metal, take a listen because it's not bad. I am hit or miss with Marilyn Manson. My favorite industrial artist is probably 9 Inch Nails, but like old 9 Inch Nails. I really like rapcore and metal and rock and hip hop and rap. I like about everything, except American country music. I just don't love country music so much. So sorry if you're like really love, you know, country music and show tunes, but those are just not my things. But anyway, take a listen to Marilyn Manson's new album if you're into it. So I've been knitting on this when I listen to music, and that's about it. So I am happy to see more progress. I've got probably another 10 inches to do on the body, and then I'm going to complete the sleeves. I am planning to do short sleeves on this. I want them to come to maybe about here. I want them to be able to not quite hit the ditch of my arm. What is this part of your arm called? I don't know. I want it to come to about here so that I can wear this to work and have it be a nice, professional, pretty, but handmade outfit that I can wear, because I absolutely love this. And I've been feeling the red lately. I used to have red hair. I had red hair for 15 years before I moved to the Middle East and dyed it sort of this dark, officially this is dark brown, but it basically looks black. It's like as dark brown as you can get without quite going black. I've had red hair my whole life, and then I lived in the Middle East, dyed it dark brown, and I love it because now I can actually wear the color red and it doesn't conflict with my hair color. And so I'm not sure when I go back to the States, I'm not sure if I want to keep it dark brown, black like this, or if I want to go red again. I have been thinking there are all sorts of box dyes that are like a deep like a black cherry, so like a dark red that's still got the darkness that I really love about this hair color while still being red. So I'm thinking that's going to win out, but I've got about 6 more months to think about that before I can actually do anything. So we'll keep thinking. But until then, I'm going to be wearing lots of red because it actually looks okay on me now as opposed to conflicting with my hair color. So that's my first work in progress, just living in my little peacock project bag that I got for Christmas 3 years ago now. It's the one and only real project bag that I have. My next work in progress is also something that I showed last time, but I've made quite a bit of progress on it. This is my, what is this called? The Fortune's Shawlette by Tamara Kelly. Tamara Kelly, I never know how to pronounce it. It is a crocheted shawl, and it's absolutely stunning. The yarn is Juniper Moon Farms in their Harriet Fine base, which is 75% alpaca and 25% nylon. I figured this out actually this morning when I was preparing for this episode. I was like, I think this is 100% alpaca, but I'm not sure. And so I clicked on the yarn in Ravelry, and lo and behold, it's got nylon in it, which I didn't really remember. In the colorway Pampa Sunrise. this beautiful acid green. I absolutely love it. In fact, I want to wear it with this shirt. I really love the combination of like this tangerine and like sunshine yellow along with this really bright lichen green. I just think it's going to look really great. So I've been slowly and steadily working on this. Crochet is fast and fun and I like it. But I think I'm just not a super experienced crocheter, and so sometimes my finger, because I hold the yarn in my left hand for crochet, I hold my yarn in my right hand for knitting, hold it in the left hand for crochet, and I find my finger like just gets so stiff and it like locks up on me, and I can't, like, I just have a lot of tension in my hand, specifically in my left hand when I crochet, because I'm holding the yarn and my finger is just straight out like this, and I've tried crimping it and sort of making it feel a little bit less tense, but it doesn't really work. But whatever, I'm over it, and honestly, I do what I can and I enjoy it, and that's the most important thing. And when I come out, I'm gonna have a shawl for myself, because I've knit 3 or 4 shawls in recent months, and they've all gone to other people. I knit one for my sister, I knit one for my mother-in-law, I knit one for my mother, I knit one. That's it, just 3 shawls is what I made. But I'm not a huge shawl knitter. I much prefer knitting garments, mitts and things like this, accessories. And so shawls are sort of a giant project, and I feel like if I'm gonna be spending all that time, I might as well get a garment out of it. And so this is going to be a shawl for myself, because I don't make enough shawls for myself. I can probably count on one hand how many shawls I have for myself, and how many shawls I've made for other people is just much more than that. So I'm excited to have this finished, and I really hope that it's going to be nice and lightweight. This is a very fine fingering weight yarn. It's a 2-ply, and it's really nice. It feels so soft against the skin, so I know it's going to be nice for a shawl that I'm going to wear. And as I mentioned in my last episode, I do have some beautiful blue, they're like a royal blue seed bead. And the end of the pattern basically has you finishing off the edge to make it nice and straight. I'm going to be adding some blue seed beads to the end of this, and if I have enough, to the top edge as well. So I want to have blue beads all the way around, and hopefully it'll add some weight to the shawl so that it can sort of keep open and you can really be able to see all that lace work. That's what I'm hoping for. So that's what I'm going to get. I'll make it happen. I'm a firm believer in you make things for yourself, so that's what I'm gonna do. All right. My next work in progress. Those are the 2 that you'd seen before. My next 2 works in progress are new, and this first one, I feel like I can't get my shit together sometimes. Like, I watch all these podcasts. I probably watch 15 different podcasts, like, on a regular basis. Those are the ones that I keep up with, let alone the individual episode here and there. Right? And I can never get on board with a knit along from one of my favorite podcasters. Like, even if I'm knitting mittens, I will not enter a knit along for someone else's podcast for mittens, because I just don't have the energy. I don't even know. I am so lazy when it comes to knit alongs for podcasters. But on Facebook, like I said, I'm a member of a couple of different knitting groups, and one of them is Knitting Uncensored. And a woman had posted, and she's like, hey, I'm thinking let's do a knit along for the Emiliana shawl. And this shawl, I had just finished it maybe a month ago for my sister Amanda in black and white. I'll put a picture here so you can see it. And so I commented on this knit along, and I was like, oh my god, what a beautiful pattern. I just finished making it. It's a really wonderful shawl. And the woman messaged me and she goes, hey, that's amazing. Would you mind being a monitor for our knit along? Since you've knit it, maybe you can help us out. And I was like, yeah, that sounds absolutely great. Like, sure, I'll be a monitor. That sounds awesome. And she says, great. And I sort of look, and in my Ravelry queue, I have another Lisa Matheson, I'm sorry, not Lisa Matheson. I have another Lisa Haynes shawl that was sitting in my queue that I had sort of planned for myself, and it was the Siciliana shawl. And so I asked her, I said, hey, would it be okay if instead of me joining the knit along and making this Emiliana, can I make the Siciliana shawl instead? Same designer, same idea of mosaic knitting. You know, would you mind if I did this? And then I'm still happy to moderate for That's it, moderator, not monitor, whatever. Anyway, I was like, I'm still happy to moderate for the Emiliana shawl because I just finished knitting it. She says, absolutely not a problem. So I joined this knit along group and things started moving really, really fast. Like the day after I joined this private group on Facebook, people are like, okay, what's your status? Have you picked your yarn? I'm already at 78 stitches on the needle. You know, like how many stitches do you have? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm slacking, holy shit. And so I pulled out my yarn and I caked them up. And so I am knitting out of these beautiful yarns. These are both Madeline Tosh Merino Light, which is 100% merino, not superwash, and it's a single ply yarn. So it is one strand of yarn spun upon itself, which definitely has a different feel than a 2-ply or 4-ply fingering weight yarn. And so the colorways here are Optic for the white, and the green is Jade. I purchased these skeins with a Lisa Haynes pattern in mind, with the Siciliana shawl in mind. I purchased these forever ago. I knew I wanted to knit this pattern, and I was just raring to go. And so when I was sort of feeling the pressure for this knit along, I immediately skeined up these yarns, even though I had just finished the pattern. And I'm looking on Ravelry, and I'm like, okay, the Siciliana shawl is a crescent-shaped shawl. The Emiliana shawl, which I knit for my sister, is a triangle-shaped shawl, and I much prefer the look of a triangle shawl. And I looked at these patterns for probably 10 minutes, and I just decided, fuck it, I'm gonna knit the Emiliana again for myself. So literally I started on the Emiliana shawl for myself, probably 3 weeks after finishing it for my sister. Oh well, I'm excited about it, and I've made some progress. So let's see where I'm at. This is the right side. I have about 96 stitches on the needle right now. You increase to roughly 150 stitches before you add the mosaic band, which will be in the green and white, of course. And so I'm not sure how I feel about this yarn, because when I had it in the skein, these speckles were really muted. It was definitely a cream colored yarn, and it had some speckles in black and a couple other little random, here's a good one, little random reds or yellows or sort of alternative colors. But when I'm knitting this up, it turns to like an overall color of gray as opposed to the cream, which is what I really wanted. So I'm sort of peeved about that, but when I had initially caked up the yarn, it was a little bit wider out to about here, and you could see that there were a lot of speckles on the outside of it. And you can actually see that as you get further in, you don't see as many speckles. So I'm really hoping that when I do the band of mosaic knitting with the green and the white, that I'm going to have more of the cream color and less of the speckles, because the speckles are a little overwhelming for this shawl so far. I think it's going to look really, really cool when I'm done knitting it. I am actually quite happy with it. I like the speckles, but it's more than I thought there would be. You can even see that towards the bottom where you cast on, there's a lot of gray. It looks like an Oreo. Like the reason I bought this yarn is because I absolutely loved the speckles. The cookies and cream sort of look is really beautiful. You can see that as I went up, you can actually get a lot more of the cream color. So I am getting happier with the yarn the more I knit with it. I just think it's overly speckled. This is my problem with speckled yarns. Be it socks, be it a shawl, whatever I'm knitting, I feel like the speckles are just sort of, a lot. Like it's like a lot of speckles. And so I'm really looking forward to knitting with this, which is much more of a tonal yarn. I think tonal is going to be great against a speckle. That's what I wanted. I almost wish I had a solid cream, like an undyed natural yarn to go with this, but what can you do? I do still think it's going to be absolutely stunning when I'm finished with it. And again, I bought these two skeins together. I knew that there were speckles in it. It's not like I didn't have this planned from the get-go. I just hope that the speckles sort of get a little bit sparser, specifically for the mosaic band. So that's what I'm hoping. The nice part about this pattern is that it's not just straight stockinette. You can see here there are some like little slipped stitches, which add a really nice subtle texture to this project. I definitely think that this is a grade A pattern. if you've never tried mosaic knitting, basically the idea is that it's a 2-color knitting style, but it is not Fair Isle. You only use 1 color of yarn going back and forth across your rows. So you do not have to hold 2 different strands. There's no problem with tension unless you, how you do the mosaic is that you end up slipping stitches from like the row below so that you're knitting in green, and then you slip a stitch from below so that it's white, and that white stitch will carry up and make this look of color work, even though you're not actually stranded knitting. You're not working with 2 different colors at the same time. It's really brilliant. I don't know who invented this style, but it is definitely my preferred colorwork style because you don't have to worry about, your tension with 2 different colors of yarn at the same time. So I'm really happy with this, and I think I made the right decision by making a triangle shawl, the Emiliana versus the Siciliana crescent-shaped shawl. So I do think I made the right choice. I'm not falling behind in the knit-along. It is, I think, a 1.5 or 2-month-long knit-along. I don't even think there are any prizes. I think it's literally like some people on Facebook wanted to knit this pattern, and here we are coming together knitting it. So that's that, and I'm really excited about having a finished shawl for myself for twice, I guess, not for once, for twice, because I'm gonna have 2 finished shawls probably about the same time, and I'm really excited because I'll get to interchange them. Damn it, they're both green. That's okay, I love green. I like the whole rainbow of colors. Like, my favorite color wavers between like a purple or an orange, or sometimes like reds, maroons. I mean, like, you can see my color palette here. It's definitely just solids and or tonals, but really I love these like golden tones. These oranges are really beautiful. That was my favorite color for a really long time. But then I absolutely love this jewel toned purple. You know, I made these mitts out of it. I love this color purple. I love pretty much any purple. I like blues, I like greens, I like the whole color of the rainbow. There's not really a color I don't like. I like all the colors. Makes me a good knitter, at least. I don't feel like I have too many of one color items in my collection. You know, I've got blues, I've got reds, I've got orange. Not quite, I have oranges, yeah. When I go back to San Diego, I'm making a whole episode about me unboxing my knits that have been in storage for 2 years. I'm dying because I forget some of the things that I have in there, and I've got like a whole bin of knit items that need to be freed, and I hope that they're still safe and that they haven't disintegrated with time. They're in big plastic containers, but we'll see. Okay, my last work in project. God, I keep rambling on. My last work in progress is something that I actually just cast on this morning, but I felt like I didn't have enough things on the needles for some reason, and I was sitting there staring at this yarn and thinking, I've been planning these socks for 4 months now. I've been planning these socks for myself, so I cast them on, damn it. And I started off with this yarn, which is Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock in the colorway Grape Jelly. This yarn was previously used to make my Britannia sweater by Tin Can Knits. I almost wore it today, but it's really hot in Cairo. It's like, I'm sorry to everyone in the Midwest who's literally been buried in snow for 5 months. I'm so sorry, but we've got a heat wave here in Cairo. So today is about 95 degrees or like 36 Celsius. It's hot, hot, hot. So I did not want to wear a hand knit sweater, but I have this beautiful leftover yarn, which is making me feel nostalgic for this sweater. And I cast on some socks. And so I am doing these socks 2 at a time. I actually cast on these toes 1 at a time and then transferred them to an extra needle while I knit the other toe, and then put them both on the same needle to start knitting, you know, actually toe up socks. They're really great. The toes are the Tough Love Sock by Sweet Georgia, and the foot is going to be the rest of this yarn, which is Malabrigo sock yarn in their colorway Wales Road. I had knit a pair of socks for my friend Lindsay out of these, fell in love with the yarn, and decided to save half the skein for myself. And so I am selfishly, very selfishly, knitting these toe-up socks. The pattern that I'm sort of following, which, sure, the pattern I'm following, I'll just say that, it's called the Toe-Up Socks with a Difference by Wendy D. Johnson. Basically, they're toe-up socks, but you make a heel flap and gusset toe up. I've knit, like I said, a lot of socks lately. I do them all toe up, but I've done just a short row heel for all my other toe up socks, and they don't fit me the best. I have a very wide foot right here where it needs it most, and I find that socks with a heel flap and gusset fit me a lot better than the short row heel that I've got in a couple different pairs of socks. So I knew that there was a way to make a heel flap and gusset in toe up socks. I just didn't know how, so I searched Ravelry for toe up, heel flap and gusset, and I came across this free pattern. And so it looks really cool. I'm sorry, I have like yarn in my nose right now. Sorry about that, gross. The pattern looks really cool. Basically, you knit the length of the foot, except for, 3 inches it says, and then you start increasing on the bottom of your foot. And normally, when you do like a heel flap and gusset, like the gusset part is where you start decreasing, and it usually makes a V before you knit the foot. This is for cuff down socks, traditional heel flap and gusset. In these socks, you increase in a V on the heel, and then I believe the way it looks is that you have, let's say 75 stitches on the needle, however many, and I think you just start knitting a heel flap and then you like attach it. I'm not sure how it works. I'll definitely keep you posted throughout this whole experiment, because I'm really excited to see how this works. If it works well, I will definitely be making more of these, because toe up is my preferred sock. You can use as much yarn as you need. 2 at a time I love, because it's fast, it's great, and a heel flap and gusset fits me better. So let's just combine it all, and I'm doing magic loop, so this is it. Currently, I have 64 stitches on the needle, and it is too many. So I think I'm going to decrease back to the toe, where I actually only increased to 60 stitches, because that's sort of my preferred number for socks. But then I looked at the pattern, and it said increase to 64 stitches, so I said fine. And on the first row of the blue Malabrigo sock yarn, I actually increased one more time around, which was 4 stitches increased. And it's just too big. So I think I need to do 2 things. I'm going to decrease down to 60 stitches, and by decrease I mean I'm going to rip back to the purple toe and then just start knitting from there. And then I really need to make sort of some form of modified rib stitch. The socks that I had made previously were Hermione's Everyday Sock, which does have like a purl stitch in there, and I think I'll make blueberry waffle socks. Done. It's decided. I am going to make blueberry waffle socks because I believe that they have sort of a modified broken rib in some way. I know that it adds stretchiness to it so that it can stretch out when I put my foot into it, but it's not going to be gigantic if I have 64 stitches on the needle or 60 stitches or something like that. Yes, I've been dying to knit those blueberry waffle stitches or blueberry waffle socks. And what a better colorway than this clearly blueberry colored yarn, right? So I'm gonna do that. Oh, I'm so excited now. I became a sock knitter. I'm gonna stop soon. I'm sure about it. I actually don't have any more sock yarn. I don't have any more sock yarn, so I'm not gonna knit any more socks after this pair right here. So, haha, yes. I do have this right here, which is 50 grams of fingering weight, 100% merino. Uh-oh, not superwash, 100% merino, 50 grams. This is Richard DeVries. I got it in Canada, Edmonton, Canada. The colorway is Patina, and I was sort of planning to make fingerless mitts for myself. I'm gonna make mitts. I don't need orange socks. Actually, that's not true. I have some orange DK weight yarn at my home in Michigan, but I didn't bring it to Egypt because I felt like I had too much yarn. But I don't feel like I have too much yarn anymore. I can easily knit this in the 5 months that I have remaining here in Cairo. But now that I know where to buy yarn, I'm not like worried about not having any yarn to knit with. But this is the only one I would consider a sock yarn, but I'm gonna make mitts out of it. So, haha, these are my last socks, and then I get to focus on other projects. I say that like it's a bad thing, but I've been having a lot of fun knitting socks. The one thing I don't like doing is wearing my hand knit socks in shoes. I don't know how people say that like their whole sock collection is all handmade, they wear their socks in boots and shoes and everything like that. I personally find that hand knit socks are very uncomfortable in shoes, especially because like on the inside of your sock, it's all those purl bumps. And so when you're going vertical against all the horizontal purl bumps, I feel like not only are you wearing the socks down a lot, but I also feel like it's just creating friction where there otherwise wouldn't be if you have sort of machine-made store-bought socks. So I'm not personally a big fan of wearing my socks in my shoes. The nice thing is that now that it's summer in Cairo and I basically live in San Diego the rest of the year, I wear sandals most of the year, and so there's no need for me to really wear hand knit socks outside of the house. So these are going to be bedtime socks, they're going to be house socks, anything like that, and I'm just going to keep on knitting them. You know, I've heard other podcasters saying like, oh, you know, I do this all for the podcast, and I knit so much because I know I've got viewers and podcasts and this and that. Personally, I knit this much because I like knitting this much, and I never feel like I have too many knits. In fact, I literally always say to myself, I have nothing to wear. I have nothing handmade to wear. And I knit constantly, and I have all these finished objects, but I feel like I never have anything to wear in terms of shawls or small accessories that I can wear out of the house. And so I don't feel like this is a burden on me at all. I feel like I do this for myself because I genuinely want to. But I don't know, I never feel like I have enough things to wear. And so like, if I have 10 pairs of socks, that's great, I'll have 10 pairs of house socks. And when I finally decide that I've had enough, I can start donating some. I can actually start knitting for other people, and knitting for charity, and knitting for all the causes that I've said from day one of this podcast. I've said that I've wanted to do charity knits a lot more. I had that one charity knit for Knitted Knockers, the prosthetic breasts for cancer survivors. And that was really amazing, but then I moved abroad to London, and then I moved abroad to Alexandria and Cairo, and I've been sort of living abroad that I haven't been able to knit for charity like I want to. So that's sort of next on my docket. I've got this like 5-10 year plan for my knitting. It's so funny, most people have that for their career. I have that too, but I really have like a 1, 3, 5 year plan for my knitting, and a lot of it does include charity knits. So stay tuned on this channel. In about 6 more months, I'm going to be moving back to the States, and then we're going to start knitting for charity, okay? We're going to do it. Good. That's it for me. Thank you so much. I want to say one more thing. One of the reasons that I love this knitting podcast community so much is because I love seeing where people are from, and I love hearing where people are from. I've been watching a ton of podcasts lately that people are from either Michigan. I don't know how. I found like 2 or 3 different knitting podcasts that are from Michigan. I found a Woolen Homestead. She's from Midland, Michigan. And then my other, the person who had mentioned to me that PAC is polyacrylic, her knitting podcast is called Knitting Envy, and she's also from Michigan. And I love hearing my Michigan gals, you know, because I can totally hear their accent. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm knitting sacks, and this sack is really great. Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun. I'm from Michigan, but I sort of lost that accent when I moved to California and Massachusetts and London and Cairo. It sort of goes everywhere. But I love hearing the different accents. I can definitely tell if you're from the Midwest. I love hearing all the British accents. So people from London, people outside of London. If you've watched the Beardy Shield podcast, he's Scottish, and his accent is so beautiful, so lovely. I love watching like the Periscoping sisters, because one of them is in California, the other one I think is in Georgia. They sort of speak a little bit differently. I love listening to people's language. Like, as a language teacher and a language student myself, language has always been a passion of mine, and I'm really attuned to hearing people's dialects and their vernacular English that they're using, and just their different accents that they've got. So that's what one of my favorite things about this knitting podcast community is just hearing about all these different people, where they're from, what they do, how they speak. It's really cool. And especially being here in Egypt, I do speak Egyptian Arabic pretty fluently, but it's always great when you meet someone from another country. I have worked a lot with students from the Gulf, so think Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, all these different countries. They have a different dialect than what I speak, compared to Lebanese Arabic or Palestinian or Syrian or Jordanian Arabic. They sound different. Heaven forbid you meet someone from Morocco. Officially they speak Arabic, but you might not even be able to understand them. So it's just a really awesome community of people who speak the same language, but have a totally different accent. They use different words, different vernacular, different words that they use for the same thing. It is so cool. and I just love it. So this is a little rambling about my language-focused brain right now. That's all. Okay, thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. I want to wish you a really great, happy weekend, and just have a really good time knitting this year, guys. Cheers. Take care. Bye.